I was listening to the radio with my mother when I heard about the Beaumont children from Adelaide in Australia. They had vanished without a trace. The radio crackled with static as the announcer's sombre, urgent voice cut through. The Beaumont children, Jane, Anna and Grant, were last seen around midday. Their parents are desperate for any information. The announcer's voice wavered as he delivered the plea. If you have seen anything, please contact the authorities immediately. Every moment counts. In that moment, I looked at my mother as her hands tightened their grip around her coffee cup. Her face said it all. This could have been my child. The fear in her eyes lingered not just in our living room, but beyond, rippling through neighbourhoods, gripping entire communities. That tugged at the edges of our collective fear, an unspoken threat lurking in plain sight. Stranger Danger was its name. Meanwhile, for Jim and Nancy Beaumont, life followed a familiar rhyme, days blending into one another in their quiet comfort of their Glenelg home. It was Australia Day 1966, after all. A time of national pride and celebration, of barbecues and families flocking to the beach to escape Australia's sweltering heat. It was just another sizzling day for Jane, Anna and Grant, carefree children eager for adventure. And like many times before, they asked their mum, Nancy, if they could go to the beach. She agreed, handing Jane enough coins for a bus and a snack for the children, trusting that her 9-year-old Jane was responsible enough to watch over her younger siblings. They grabbed their towels and beach bags in excitement, imagining the towering sand castles they were going to build between swims. Nancy handed Jane enough money to cover the bus fares and snacks. Nancy believed that her 9-year-old daughter, Jane, was responsible enough to watch over her siblings, Anna, who was just 7 years of age, and Grant, who was 4. She watched as her children ran off, their laughter fading, their footsteps growing fainter with every step. She didn't know then, but as she watched them disappear down the street, laughing, carefree, that this was the last time she would ever see them. It was the last innocent goodbye. The children caught the 8:45 a.m. bus and had promised to be home by noon that day. The three of them hopped off the bus, stepping out as the searing sun bore down on them. The shoreline bustled with families as the waves rolled onto the golden sands, offering a cool escape from the relentless heat. After playing in the sprinklers at Collie Reserve, they made their way to Wenzel's cake shop for a treat, completely unaware that this moment, so ordinary, so familiar, one that would be etched into history and frozen in time. Jane purchased pastries and a meat pie, handing over a crisp £1 note. But where had she gotten it? Because her mother only gave her coins. So how did Jane come to have a £1 note in her possession? Witnesses later recalled seeing them with a tall, thin-faced man, mid-30s with fair, light brown hair and a suntanned complexion. Some said he looked friendly as the children appeared at ease with him, laughing and playing as though he was a familiar figure in their lives. Others weren't so sure. The shop assistant remembered one of the children mentioning the man when they were in the shop, and that struck a chord with the shop assistant as they thought that the children were supposed to be alone. Around midday, the children were seen leaving the beach with the same man, and an elderly woman described him as calmly helping the children to dress. His composure struck her as deeply strange, suggesting a comfortable, almost a parent-like interaction, rather than a stranger forcibly abducting children. Even more unsettling was Jane's reaction to the man. At her age, modesty and growing independence from adults, especially men, should have taken hold. But Jane showed no discomfort, no hesitation about being with the man. The question here is, did Jane truly know him, or was he a skilled manipulator adept at earning the trust of the children? By this time, a quiet unease crept in. The bustling crowd had faded into the distance, and in its absence, the children were alone. And just like that, they were gone, swallowed by the unknown, never to be seen again. As the hours stretched on, Jim and Nancy Beaumont's worry turned to panic. When Jim returned home at 3 p.m, he drove to the beach in search of their children. Finding nothing, Jim and Nancy turned their attention to the surrounding streets, checking in with friends, hoping for any sign of their children. Where were their children? What had happened to them? Why had they not returned home? Their world had simply turned upside down, and they were living a parent's worst nightmare. Endless questions flooded their once predictable life, each one tangled in agonising memories of their children. Jane's carefree rave, Anna's bright grin, and Grant's tiny footsteps fading into the distance. By 5:30 p.m, Jim and Nancy decided to report their children missing and went to the Glenelg police station. Quick to react to Jim and Nancy's plea, the police immediately searched the Glenelg beach and surrounding area to no avail. Volunteers combed the beach area, desperate for any trace of the children. They then expanded their search to the sandhills, the ocean, neighbouring buildings, and started to monitor interstate roads, thinking that the children were kidnapped or had been involved in some terrible kind of accident. Within days, the disappearance of the Beaumont children sent shockwaves across Adelaide, rippling throughout Australia, even reaching the distant shores of my home country, New Zealand. One headline in the Sunday Mail exclaimed, "Sex crime now feared." Newspaper headlines painted a grim picture, suggesting that the Beaumont children had likely been abducted, perhaps by a dangerous predator. For Jim and Nancy Beaumont, their panic had transformed into sheer despair as the hours ticked by without any sign of their children. The beach contained no answers, no struggle, no scattered belongings, and it was as if the children had been erased from existence. Things are never quite as they seem, especially in a case like this. There are other intriguing fragments to this tragic story of loss, a loss felt deeply by someone else in the community. It was one of those fragments that remained hidden in silence, waiting for time to bring it to light. A story buried within a story, one that could only emerge with the passing of time. In the late 60s, Adelaide was not a quiet city as it's often perceived today. Back then, it was a genuinely bustling town, alive with activity, and one local, Harry Phipps, a multi-millionaire, owned the Castleloy factory in North Plympton, producing car and motorbike parts for Australia. By all accounts, Harry had it all: charisma, intelligence, wealth, and he cemented his place among Adelaide's social elite. He was generous, often handing out crisp £1 notes like they were candy. His mansion only sat 190 metres from Collie Reserve, a short minute or two drive from his home. And an interesting point here, Harry Phipps was a distant relative of Jim Beaumont's through marriage. As it happens in families, there could have been chatter about him, the well-known, the wealthy relative, a name that might pop up during Sunday dinners or in a quiet conversation. After all, he was a well-regarded citizen of Adelaide. And it wasn't until 2004, decades after the Beaumont children vanished, that the police turned their attention to Harry's son. "40 years passed, and then finally in 2004 a new lead surfaced, and it came from a place no one expected: the family of respected businessman Harry Phipps. In 1966, Hayden, Harry Phipps' son, buried his truth. For decades he kept silent until, in a police interview nearly 40 years later, he revealed the horror that he had endured. "He sexually abused me from the age of 3 to 13, Hayden told police. This raises a question. Could one of Adelaide's most respectable businessmen, Harry Phipps, had been hiding such a darkness all along. Hayden described disturbing and complex abuse, suggesting his father had led a double life, one that was invisible to the public. Hayden's childhood was anything but innocent, and he wasn't alone. Other family members remember Harry's abuse too. Nick Phipps recounted how his grandfather's anger wasn't just explosive, it was transformational. A shift so unnerving, it was as if he became someone else entirely. This was not the man the world of Adelaide knew. Harry Phipps projected himself on the Adelaide stage as a revered businessman and a pillar of society. But was he the monster hiding in plain sight? Hayden's shocking claim sent ripples through the investigation. Now the detectives had a name. A man with wealth, status and dark secrets. If Hayden was telling the truth, could his father have been responsible for the disappearance of the Beaumont children? Then Hayden dropped a revelation that stunned investigators. He claimed that he had seen the Beaumont children at the family's Glenelg home on the day of the disappearance. Even more disturbing, two brothers later claimed that in the days following the Beaumont children's disappearance, Harry had asked them to dig a large hole at his North Plimpton factory. And another point here, the identikit sketch that was first done when the children went missing led nowhere. There was no clear suspects and no answers until now, because the face in the sketch looked eerily like Harry Phipps. Well, decades passed, but hope of finding the children never dimmed. The Newcastle Roy factory site, tied to the lingering shadow of Harry Phipps, became a focal point for the ongoing investigation. There were repeated excavations done in hope of finding the children. In 2013, the first modern efforts began, although they yielded no definitive answers. Then in 2018, Nancy Beaumont, still searching, still hoping, made a heartbreaking request. More than a half a century had passed, yet Nancy Beaumont still searched for her lost children. She pleaded with police for one more dig, one last chance at finding the truth. They responded immediately, excavating a disturbed soil area. It was the one final glimmer of possibility in the long, aching search. But the earth held no secrets, only animal bones. The mystery remained undisturbed, untouched by time. Even the absence of answers is unable to silence the search for truth. Time has moved forward, but some truths remain unchanged. The whispers of stranger danger linger in our society, a quiet, unshakable thrum beneath the surface of everyday life. We learned bitterly that danger wears a disguise, blending into the safe and respectable, masking uncomfortable truths beneath. We all wear a carefully constructed facade. Beneath it lies complexities, secrets, and sometimes a darkness capable of shattering the illusion of safety in an instant. The story of the Beaumont children is not over, but someday the answers will finally come. Are you interested in more deep dives into unsettling mysteries like this? Leave a comment below, and if you're committed to uncovering the truth, don't forget to like and subscribe. Together, we can build a community where justice means accountability and where the truth is never buried.